how small it may be or how big it is, it qualifies to be an act of charity. Whether it was directed towards humans or whether it was directed to animals, as we will see what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us about being good to animals. You know, it's amazing, in the West people speak as if they are the creators of this concept. You know, we have PETA people for ethical treatment of animals, and they speak on behalf of the cows, they speak on behalf of dogs and cats and pets and what have you. And mashallah, this is good. They're part of the creation of Allah. Not knowing that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam a long time ago spoke for the rights of the animals, because they are part of the creation of Allah. In the hadith it was said, there are two narrations. It said that one time a prostitute was very thirsty, and she went down to the well and she drank. And when she came out, there was a dog around the well, and the dog was feeling very thirsty and it was panting vehemently. So what happened is that the prostitute felt very sorry for that dog. She went down the well and filled her shoes and brought back water to the dog. Now what happened is that the dog was filled. And the hadith goes on to say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her sins because of the kindness that she showed to animals. We see that Islam tells us that part of the righteous deeds is being good to the ecology around us. In the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, "Man zara'a zar'an," say that whoever plants any kind of tree. And then he said that where people use as a form of a place to relax, it's a shadow, or animals eat from, it will be a charity for them until so long that tree is out there. So now that planting a tree in our religion, it's not only just a good deed, but it is seen as a sadaqah, as a charity that continues as long as that tree is out there. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man qata'a zar'an." He said that whoever cuts down a tree for no good reason, and it was used by other people, it was used either by animals or by other people, and he cut it down for no good reason, again, the Prophet ﷺ said, the abode of that person in the hereafter is the hellfire. There is another beautiful hadith also. The Prophet ﷺ said, if it happens that the day of judgment is being declared, إِذَا قَامَتِ السَّاعَةُ وَفِي يَدِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَسِيلًا, and one of you had the form of a bushel, or they had a seed with them, let them plant it. Now the day of judgment is being declared, but he said let them plant it. Now what do you expect from a religious leader? So now the day of judgment is being declared, a religious leader would probably say, you go run to the mosque, you run to your church, or you run to your synagogue or your temple and stay there, for the day of judgment is being declared. But that's not what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. He said, be proactive, do something good, even though if it means that you plant a tree as soon as you can, do so, even though the day of judgment has been declared or the hour has been declared. See, my brothers and sisters, Eemaan with no amal, belief with no action, is really not of much consequence. We've got to do the act, my brothers and sisters. And these different types of worships that we are engaged in, they must impact how we behave. Now sadly what happens is, in another hadith, a statement that was said by Ibn Mas'ud, collected by Imam Malik in his book called Al-Muwatta. He was once addressing one of his friends or one of his acquaintances, and he said, إِنَّكَ فِي زَمَانٍ, that you live in a time, قَلِيلٍ قُرَّاؤُهُ. So the people that are well versed with the Quran are very few in numbers, meaning that the way, the tajweed of it and what have you. قَلِيلٍ قُرَّاؤُهُ كَثِيرٌ عُلَمَاؤُهُ. But the people who have knowledge about the meaning and the spirit of the Quran, they are in abundance. Very few people, he said, ask assumption questions. What if, what if, what if? Even though if they were to ask it, they would find that there are many that will answer these questions. Whenever they give speeches, their speeches are very short. Whenever they lead prayers, their prayers are very long. They put their ego aside and they pay more attention to their deeds. And then he said, but times is going to run. There will be a time where the people who are well versed with the Quran are going to be in numerous numbers. They've got hafiz left and right, mashallah, may Allah bless them all. But then he said, people who are aware of the message of the Quran are very few in numbers. Then he said, تحفظ فيه حروف القرآن وتضيع فيه حدوده. People pay more attention to preserving the letters of the Quran, but very little attention is paid to preserve the spirit and the commands of the Quran. Whenever they speak, their speeches are very long. Whenever they pray, their prayers are very short. And what happens, he said that they pay more attention to their ego than they do pay attention to their deeds. In other words, what Ibn Mas'ud is saying, that there will come a time to the Muslim Ummah when a specific disease is going to creep into it. And that is, appearance becomes more important than essence. Style becomes more important than substance. Looks become more important than this. And in the process, what have you, is that we mix many things. In the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that there will be a time when people are going to build mosques. You know, mashallah, in the hadith it said, whoever builds a mosque for the sake of Allah, Allah will build a house for him in paradise. But then he said, they build it for the sake of show off. Our masjid is bigger, our masjid has got more calligraphy, our masjid is this, our masjid is that. And then he said, إِذَا دَخَلْتَ مَسْجِدَهُمْ, and if you were to enter any of these masjids that were built for this sake, you will not even find one humble devoted servant to Allah in that masjid. Because the skeleton of the masjid was more important than the spirit of the masjid. Because the building was more important again than the spirit of the building. And subhanallah, then the Prophet ﷺ goes on to say, فِيهِ رِجَالٌ لَيْسُوا بِرِجَالٍ وَلَكِنْ أَشْبَهُ رِجَالٍ. In it are men. Nay, they are not men. They are the mimicking. They are the imitation of men. Simply because they did not live up to that. And again, sadly, my brothers and sisters, if we are going to perform this deen and carry on the different acts of worship, it must impact our character, and that character must show in the way we deal with other people. We are the best ummah that was created for man, for fellow human beings, and we have got to take this with us. Quickly, I'll repeat the story about the two people. One sells vinegar and the other one sells candy. The person that sells vinegar, his business was excellent and it was booming. And the person that was selling candy, his business was going nowhere. People walk in and out, they don't buy anything. They go to the vinegar shop, they walk in and they walk out with gallons of vinegar. So 6 months down the road, they decided to close the candy shop. But then the owner said, let me go and just inquire, what is it about this person? What does he do? So he went to him and he said, I don't mean to offend you, but you sell vinegar. It tastes very bitter and it smells very bad. I sell candy. It tastes very sweet and it smells very good, but your business is better than my business. The man looked at him and he said, I sell vinegar with a candy face and you sell candy with a vinegary face. We have got that candy, but we are not packaging it so that humanity benefits from it. Humanity is in a dire need for Islam at this point. Well, people are, you know, those of us who've been and they've lived in the West, we see how people are desperate for Islam. But they do not see an alternative in Islam simply because of how we Muslims are. What do they see? Poverty, diseases, ignorance, lack of education, oppression, dictators. That's what they see. So if that religion was any good, it would have been good to the people that follow it. But it's not doing them any good. Therefore, we cannot see an alternative in it. And that is where the whole idea of Eemaan. If there is Eemaan there, then along with it, there must be amal. There must be action. Not any kind of action, that there has got to be amal salih. That action must be a righteous deed. Either be it to the individual, but most important is impacting the people that are around us. And subhanallah, the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's what they used to do. You know, that's what they wanted. Go out there and impact the people around them. You know, you're not a good Muslim if you just stay in your bedroom and be a good Muslim there. That is not it. One time it was said, and the story here is metaphorical, it is symbolic, so please take it for that. It said that a man was walking by, said that he was talking to God, meaning that he was complaining to God loudly. So he said he saw a beggar, and then he saw a crippled person, and then he saw a very poor widow, and then he saw a very, again, poor orphan. So he started talking to God very loudly and said, God, don't you see what is happening? God, don't you see the beggars? God, don't you see the catastrophes that are taking place? God, don't you see the oppression? God, don't you see this orphan and this widow? Why don't you do something about it? And the story goes on to say that God spoke back to him and said, I did do something about it. I created you to make a difference. I created you to make a difference. So we know what is happening. We are acknowledging it. What kind of a difference are we making? And that is the whole point of Eemaan and Amal Salih. I see, and I'm going to do something about it. You know, interestingly, sociologists nowadays, when they talk, they want to know how to determine whether a society is a good society or not. What are the criteria? You know, how do I know if this society in this subcontinent, or people in the Middle East, South America, in the West, if they're a good society or not a good society? So one of them made a very crucial statement and a very powerful one. He said, the goodness of any society should not be measured by the self-congratulatory statements that that society makes about itself. The goodness of any society should not be measured by the self-congratulatory statements that that society makes about itself. It should be measured by what kind of statements that that society make about the most vulnerable in that society. What kind of statements does that society make about the poor and the needy, the orphans and the widows? In the 4th year of Bi'tha, the 4th year after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was being given prophethood, you know what verses Allah reveals? You'll be amazed. Now this is a society that is full of exploitation, oppression, alcoholism, gambling, nationalism, exploiting the poor, and the Quran comes down. And what is revealed? أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the one who belies religion? Now you see, who belies religion? He who does not believe in the Day of Judgment, he who does not pray, he who does not believe in the oneness of God. But that's not what the Quran says. It says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the one who belies religion? فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. Who belies religion? It is he who repels the orphan with harshness and does not encourage the feeding of the poor and the needy. The statement is made today, but Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the 4th year of Bi'tha, he already made that declaration. That I am here for these people. Now the Muslims are oppressed themselves, they're tortured themselves, but he speaks of the goodness that is ought to humanity, you know, about to do to other people. And if you see, subhanallah, most of the acts of worship that we are commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do is either something that is, you know, to further enhance the unity amongst us Muslims and also bring benefit to mankind. You can pray by yourself, but there is more reward when you pray with the rest of the believers. You can make Umrah any time of the year, but there is more reward when you make Hajj with the rest of the believers. You can fast any time of the year except the Eid, but there is more reward when you fast with the rest of the believers during the month of Ramadan. And every one of it is really an encouragement for unity as well as the welfare of mankind, my brothers and sisters. So inshallah, let us take this opportunity. The idea of Amal Salih is, what can I do so that the society around me is improved? We said last night that part of self-respect is that you see yourself as someone who can contribute to humanity. That is part of the dignity and pride that we have in us. That I see myself as someone who is worthy of contributing to humanity. And only me can make that contribution on my behalf. No one else can do it. And for that I have to be me. And nowadays Muslims owe it to humanity that there is a contribution that we must take, and only us Muslims, we can make that contribution. Well, how do we do it? We do it through Eemaan, and we do it through Amal Salih.